Selamat malam, good evening. Welcome to another Bali COVID-19 update. My name is Bruce and this is for September 19th, 2021. This has been an incredibly hectic day. There is all sorts of news. I've done a number of different segments. I'm way over like 80 minutes at this point. I'm going to have to move some of this to Wednesday. The big question is Bali about to open for international tourism? Spoiler alert, not today, but who knows tomorrow. And I'll talk about that more at the end in the wrap-up. And so if that's what we're interested in predominantly, you can just jump to the wrap-up. Otherwise, I have a lot of other things to talk about here. And so let's start with the numbers as usual. Good news on the numbers, and that's good news all around. So 7-day average for new positive cases was 170, and the 7-day average for deaths has dropped and it is now 15. And so good news. And what about all of Indonesia? All of Indonesia is down to 3,385 cases. Wow, okay. And no numbers for testing in Indonesia, so we'll skip that. For the 7-day period up to the 17th of September in Bali, 50,758 individuals were tested, and the target was reached 183.29%, and the 7-day positivity rate 2.54%. Okay, wow, more good news. What about vaccinations? First dose, 3,275,572, 73.3% of the population. And so you notice that the first doses now are going slowly. Our increases is not moving as quickly as our second doses. Second doses, 2,398,691, 53.7% of the population. Okay, and yesterday, 46,584 additional doses were administered. So, good news. And what about the numbers for Bali? New positive cases, 155, so below our average, or 7-day average. Recoveries, 220. Deaths, 9. Wow, that's great. We're down below 10. And active cases in Bali, 2,211. So the numbers are looking really good. And what is that going to mean for tomorrow, right? Tomorrow is Monday, and around 8 o'clock at night, somebody, Pak Luhut or President Jokowi, will be on to tell us what is going to happen for the next week. And are they going to talk about opening up for international tourism? I don't know, we'll see. So check on Wednesday to get the complete story on that. So the numbers are going down, and that's great. According to a professor from University of Indonesia School of Medicine, however, he said this is not due necessarily only to vaccinations, but he said it was due to the social restrictions. So the story, Indonesia's downward trend in COVID-19 cases not due to immunity, expert opines. And so the professor from University of Indonesia School of Medicine said that the declining trend in cases is due to the strict social restrictions. He was saying this in response to people saying that the downward trend is due to public immunity. He noted that immunity can surely be obtained naturally or from vaccines, but it is strict social restrictions that reduce the number of cases. This happens in other regions in the world. And he used the example of Wuhan, China, and said that they managed to suppress the high spike before the vaccine was around through strict social restrictions and lockdown. He added that the health protocols of 3M, which is actually now 5M, and 3T, as well as vaccinations, clearly reduce cases, but he said actually the health protocols are enough by themselves to bring about a reduction in the number of cases. However, he did underline that immunity can be obtained naturally or through the vaccinations, and that this is going to be necessary in order to contain the COVID-19 pandemic. And what about 3M going to 5M? I just said that. So 5M is including staying away from crowds, limiting mobility and interaction, wearing a mask, washing your hands, maintaining social distance. And what is 3T? Testing, tracing, and treatment. And so what is this article? What's the point of this article? That it's not just vaccines. It's not just the vaccine, it's just not vaccinations. That the social distancing, the 5M, all of this has to continue. We can't just assume that because we're vaccinated, we are not going to get the virus and we're not going to pass the virus on. And more about COVID-19 and the strains and PPKM's effectiveness. So Pak Budiman, who's an epidemiologist at the Griffith University in Australia, warned about a potential emergence of a number of new mutations. And he says that these could pose more of a danger to countries than the Delta variant. Thus, he suggested people not let their guard down. And we've heard this over and over from government officials, and I've mentioned this in every video. What new strains? Well, we have the C12 variant that is found in South Africa, and of course we've got the Mu variant. And he said we need to be on the lookout for those. Pak Budiman warned the government to take extra precautions upon preventing the entry of the new variants into Indonesia. Now, as we are getting people coming in on the B211s, and well, who knows, we may end up opening to international tourism soon, and so that's going to be an issue. And as I've talked about before, people have coming in before the B211 opened up. People were coming in testing negative at the point of entry into a plane or point of departure to Indonesia, and then when they got here they tested positive. And so people coming in can bring the new variant with them. So this is going to be a real problem. Pak Budiman's advice, similar to the previous article, he said that the government's on the right track with the enactment of public activities restrictions. And he said the restrictions don't kill the economy unless it's at level 4. Level 4, yeah, is harmful to the economy, but below that, the economy can still function, and so the government needs to remain alert and continue to use PPKM in order to control the spread of the virus. According to Jakarta Health Agency's head of epidemiology, Nabila Salama, no experts can currently predict when the pandemic is going to end, and so the local government needs to continue to accelerate the vaccination process and maintain PPKM. And what about vaccines and vaccinations? Indonesia in talks with WHO to become global vaccine hub. Indonesia is in talks with the World Health Organization as well as 6 drug companies to become global hub for manufacturing vaccines. The health minister said Indonesia is working with the WHO to become one of the global manufacturing hubs for mRNA. And he said he directly lobbied the WHO Director General on a recent trip to Europe. The WHO has already pointed out South Africa as the first location, and Indonesia believes that they should be the second. The new technology transfer hubs are part of the WHO strategy to more widely distribute vaccine production globally and build capacity in developing countries to make new generation vaccines like the Moderna and Pfizer nucleic acid-based mRNA. These mRNA vaccines can be quickly adapted to handle new virus variants. In order to develop a base for COVID-19 vaccine production in South Africa, efforts are going to focus on replicating Moderna's shot. But there's been a lack of progress in talks with the U.S. company, and that means the project is going to take some time, according to a senior WHO official. And WHO spokesperson said that Indonesia is one of 25 low and middle income countries to express an interest in hosting a vaccine hub, but the spokesperson declined to say whether Indonesia was a leading candidate. Sometimes our ministers get overly enthusiastic. Pak Budi said that Indonesia was in a good position to export vaccines around the world, especially as it's the world's most populous Muslim majority country, and could guarantee that the jabs were halal and permissible according to Islam. Okay, that makes sense. Pak Budi said Indonesian pharmaceutical companies are in discussion with vaccine manufacturers and developers, including Walvax, Sinovac, Novavax, and more. And the talks so far range from basic fill and finish to upstream production and research and development. Pak Budi added that they're also in discussions with AstraZeneca and Pfizer in order to work with them so that Indonesia can be developing vaccines and manufacturing vaccines here. And Pak Budi added that Indonesia would use its position of leadership of the G20 group, which is going to be meeting in Bali, among other places, in December to promote global health security and prepare for the next pandemic. Wow, we're not even done with this pandemic and we're preparing for the next one. Well, that's a good thing, but sometimes it just becomes overwhelming. So I hope this one comes through. This would be great if Indonesia could up its game and become a global center for manufacturing vaccines and doing research and development as well. The last video I said I would talk about schools, and I mentioned a couple of articles about opening that were pro-opening schools. Here's one that's opposed to it. Cover-ups in crowded classes. Indonesian schools not ready to reopen, educators say. This is an article in Jakarta Post, and it's looking at admittedly a small number of people that they've talked to, but it brings up some important points that we have to consider when we're opening schools up in Bali. According to the article just last week, the Association for Education and Teachers revealed that health protocol violations were still being prevalent in schools from Bekasi to Tasikmalaya. And the P2G National Coordinator said these violations are not new. The article notes that the Jakarta Post has been approached by several teachers who claim that unbeknownst to parents of students, schools are barely managing to implement the health protocols. And according to this article, parents aren't aware that protocols are either being barely implemented or not implemented at all. Additionally, it's been reported that students who are clearly sick and showing symptoms of COVID-19 are being sent to school by their parents and being allowed to enter the school by school management. And these negative occurrences are happening in both private and state-run schools. Last week, a class at SD05 in Jakarta, South Jakarta, was temporarily closed due to violations of health protocol, and there was a video, and teachers and students were shown wearing their mask incorrectly on their chins, right? The chin mask. Thanks to the circulation of the video, in-class learning was halted. But most of the time, this kind of stuff is not reported, not recorded, and so it continues to go. According to a principal of a private school, mentioned in the article, who works in North Jakarta, said that many teachers from state schools upload pictures of themselves without a mask to their internal WhatsApp groups. And this principal noted that sometimes the problem is that there are gubernatorial regulations that contradict the central government's regulations, and well, we see that here in Bali happens. And then the implementation, the COVID-19 task force would also say something else. So far, the decision in schools that have opened, the decision whether or not to send a child is being left up to parents. The Indonesian Medical Association, the IDI, seems to be aware of the awareness felt by parents, and on Saturday a pediatrician went live on the IDI's YouTube channel to answer some of the most frequently asked questions. about opening schools and agreed that in the initial stages, the implementation of in-class learning would not be optimal. He said, "I think all parties have done their best, but sometimes there are just some aspects that falter, or some people only work half-heartedly. In the early phase, everything will not be as orderly as we'd hoped. Nothing is perfect right away. There will be many shortcomings." And he commented that human resources are the big thing here, that you can have the protocols prepared meticulously, but parents, children, teachers need to follow them habitually. So implementation, again, and this is key to what's going on here. We get good policies, but they're not implemented. Or we get good policies that start to be implemented, then they're suddenly changed, and so then the implementation falters. So we need some consistency at this point, especially when it comes to schools. Are the schools going to open here? I haven't heard anything other than the article that I mentioned, the segment about Denpasar schools ready to go. Here in Singaraja, my wife went over to school to pick up books for my granddaughter the other day and noted that there were some upper class students around, and so maybe they're getting ready to open for junior high school and high school. So I really want to see my granddaughter go back to school along with everybody else in Bali. But we've got to make sure that the protocols are implemented once the schools open up. And how are we going to do that? There's going to have to be some monitoring and evaluation, continual evaluation going on. Now, some good news for travelers that are coming to Indonesia or going from Indonesia. Singapore eases restrictions for travelers from more countries. Those from Indonesia can transit here. So passengers with a travel history, according to this article, within the last 21 days prior to departure for Singapore will be allowed to transit in the Republic again, following a ban which started on July 12th. And this will begin operation 11:59 p.m. on September 22nd. Travelers from Indonesia entering Singapore will be required to undergo a on-arrival COVID-19 PCR test. Previously, they had to have the PCR test and a rapid test. In addition, travelers from Indonesia will be subject to restrictions applicable to travelers from countries that are deemed by Singapore to be the highest risk of COVID-19 infections. That means that they'll have to have a 14-day stay-home notice, quarantine otherwise, at a designated facility and go through multiple COVID-19 tests. That's if they're coming into Singapore. That's not for transit. So that's good news. That means we can get back to the U.S. if you're living here in Bali, for example. You wanted to go back to the U.S., you could go to, well, from Jakarta, you could go to Singapore, and then from Singapore you could fly back into the U.S. So we can use this as a transit site now. So that's welcome, and that's a big thing. Let's hope that that stays, because Singapore said they're going to continually monitor the situation. So we're looking at numbers continuing to go down. One of the difficulties these days, particularly now, is that things are just rapidly changing. And, well, the situation goes from one thing to the next. Sometimes it's just within less than 24 hours. And so there was a story that I was going to talk about where the deputy chairperson of the Bali Chamber of Commerce for Accommodation and Tourism Development, Imade Ramia Adnyana, said that Singapore Air was going to be flying into Bali sometime soon, and Singapore just released a statement saying no, that's not true. So Singapore Airlines Clarifies will not open flight routes to Bali. So Singapore Airlines confirmed that they will not open routes to Bali following international travel restrictions. Singapore Airlines Public Relations Manager said that the airline is still delaying the opening of flights from Singapore to Bali until further notice. So when Pak Ramia said this, immediately on social media people I'm booking my flights on Singapore, and everybody was jumping, getting ready to go. You've got to wait. You've got to go slowly here. Caution, caution, caution. Check and double check. And I'll get to this more in a minute. So Singapore Airlines said that they will adjust the travel schedule after international flight restrictions are lifted. And one of the most commented on and heated discussions on the internet recently was this report about Pak Luhut saying backpackers would not be welcome into Bali when we open up. And wow, just lots and lots from well-meaning and correct arguments that, well, without backpackers, the homestays and some of the local businesses, the small warungs and shops and craft stores would not be getting business. They would be losing business because it's not the quality tourists. If we're talking about quality as people with money staying in 4- and 5-star hotels, it's not those people that are going into these warungs and they're staying in 4- and 5-star hotels, not homestays. And so people were right in objecting to this supposed ban on backpackers. But there were also some of the usual stupid comments about, well, if it wasn't for us, Bali would be nothing. Bali would be closed, dead. Everyone would be farmers. What's wrong with being a farmer? This kind of attitude that comes from some foreigners about, if it wasn't for us, get over yourself. So there's been a response from the government about Pak Luhut's comments regarding the prohibition of backpacker tourists to Bali. Spokesman for Luhut: only those who are prohibited from violating the rules. And so a spokesperson for Pak Luhut said only those who are prohibited from violating the rules. So what that means is only those that are being prohibited are people who would violate the rules. So the government ensures that all foreign tourists are going to be allowed to travel to Indonesia without exception. And this was mentioned by spokesperson for Pak Luhut, spokesperson Jody Mahardi. Mahardi said that this was just a misunderstanding. It means visitors who violate health rules and regulations, laws and immigration regulations in Indonesia are people who would be banned, not backpackers. Jody said that Luhut's previous statement meant that foreign tourists were prohibited if they didn't meet international travel requirements set by the government during the implementation of restrictions on community activities. Jody said Bali will remain open to all tourists as long as they meet the travel requirements from abroad to enter Indonesia. Indonesia continues to strive to encourage the tourism sector that is sustainable and safe and comfortable for tourists. And so people that are coming in, and this will be to 11 people right now, and of course people that have Kitas and Kitap and the other visas that are being allowed in now, no, not the tourist visas. And what are the conditions for entering Indonesia right now? Complete dose of COVID-19 vaccination and PCR tests 3 times and quarantine for 8 days. And the quarantine is still being done in Jakarta. And wow, there's been a lot of whining about that. So B211s are open, right? Visas are coming. There's all this whining about, well, why do I have to do a quarantine? I'm coming in. I've been vaccinated, so why be in quarantine? Before it was, oh, I couldn't get into Indonesia. I'm willing to do anything. Now it's, okay, I can get into Indonesia. I'm going to whine about something else. Get over it. You can come in, do the quarantine. No, Bali is not a quarantine spot yet. Yes, it's possible that it could be sometime in the near future, which would be good for the economy and for all the new tourists who are going to be streaming in here, from what it sounds like. The other day I talked about Langkawi, and Langkawi is in the news today. Langkawi gears up for tourist return Bali for foreign visitors amid suggestions of tourism triangle with Phuket. And so Langkawi is opening, but this is for domestic visitors, not for international visitors yet. And so this is an early step taken towards the recovery of the economy. So as I said, on the 15th, Langkawi was supposed to open on the 16th. I haven't seen any updates on how that's going so far. To fully vaccinated travelers within Malaysia as part of a domestic tourism bubble. And their plan is similar to the Phuket sandbox plan, which everybody seems to want to copy these days. Officials in Malaysia are not expecting huge numbers. They're targeting 400,000 visitors by the end of this year, with an estimated revenue of 165 million ringgit or 40 million US dollars. And according to the head of the Langkawi Development Authority, they don't want huge numbers at this point. They don't want congestion. He said what's important is that they can control the tourists in order to ensure their compliance with health protocols. And this week, Pak Sandiaga Uno said that tourist areas should reach vaccination rates of 70% before reopening, and suggested regional collaboration to form a Phuket, Langkawi, and Bali tourism triangle. Okay, I haven't heard this one yet. Okay, so this is a new thing here, a tourism triangle with Phuket and Langkawi. That would be interesting. And more on Pak Sandiaga. Sandiaga optimistic Indonesian tourism rises at the end of the year. This year, Indonesia is host to the Global Tourism Forum, which is a discussion activity about tourism and issues around that. And this activity is a collaboration between the World Tourism Forum Institute with the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy and Indonesia Tourism Forum here. According to Pak Sandiaga Uno, a tourism recovery strategy will focus on a number of aspects. First is the implementation of health protocols. From the vaccination side, we want to reach 70 to 80%, he said, by the end of the year. And Bali is now just over 50% fully vaccinated. Can we get to 70 or 80% by the end of the year? Yes. Can Indonesia as a whole? That's another question. And in the meanwhile, main tourism destinations such as Bali, Batam, Bintan, and 5 super priority destinations like Labuan Bajo, Borobudur, Lake Toba, and others are being prepared, including the implementation of the G20 event. Pak Sandiaga said that Bali is going to be the main venue for G20 activities, but other events are going to be held in places like Jakarta, Borobudur, Labuan Bajo, and a few other destinations. And so we're going to have a lot of people coming in for this forum. Pak Sandiaga feels that with the strict conditions in terms of health, comfort, and safety of tourists coming to Indonesia being ensured by the vaccination rate and the CHSE protocols, which I've talked about a number of times, that tourists will feel comfortable coming here, and that it's going to be, he feels, a revival of tourism. People are ready to go, and they are ready to go. But he noted that the pandemic has to be controlled first. Vaccinations have to be completed so that the tourist industry can be maintained. And as I've said before, this is one of the key things. We don't want to bring people here and then have a numbers spike and have to shut down again. That is not going to help the tourism industry in Indonesia. But as usual, there's always people that want to go now. And as we've seen with the reissuance of the B211 visas, there's a push to get things going. And so the head of the Consultative Assembly claims that Bali is ready to receive international visitors. And so the head of the Assembly, Pak Bambang, has claimed that Bali is ready to receive international visitors. Pak Bambang said that he was grateful that Bali's economic activity has started to recover again as transmissions have decreased and the government has started allowing businesses and tourist attractions to operate in accordance with strict prevention protocols and proper screening. Okay, and well. So I hear that that's going on. Since I'm not in the tourist area, I don't know. But from what I see in social media, people are being asked to use the Peduli Lindungi app, which I've talked about many times. And if anybody has any experience, please make a comment and let us know how that's going. And Pak Bambang said that he also hopes that the central government will consider opening international travel corridor, especially for the areas that have been relying on international tourists to survive. And so, as you know, I've talked about, Padang Bai, that was, 3 months ago, how empty Padang Bai was. And if you've seen social media, you know that Kuda and Legian dead. Tanur, I saw a video yesterday. Some people, not that many. Canggu, from what I hear, is still busy, but that's Canggu. And Ubud is, well, last time I was there, it's pretty empty. And I saw a video a couple of days ago, and it still looked pretty empty. Pak Bambang added that according to the Bali Tourism Agency, all tourism workers in Bali have received their full COVID-19 vaccinations, and so he hopes that the central government will allow foreign visitors to come in the near future. Pak Bambang claimed that Bali's economy has grown compared with the beginning of 2021, and he said our statistics center recorded 2.83% growth in Bali economy in quarter 2 of 2021. If that's true, that's great. And he said that he's sure that it will keep growing if we comply with prevention protocols. And so this is, if this economy is growing, it's got to be from domestic tourists. Now, if we've got the B211s coming in again, that can also be a big boost, especially if as many people come in as it seems like, just based on what I've been monitoring in social media. Okay, so let's get into some stories about the airport being opened and when we're going to open for international tourism. The first one, immigration at the airport ready to accept foreign tourists. Okay, people have jumped on this. Tourists, wannabe tourists, foreigners that live in Bali, hotel owners, visa agents, just about everybody has jumped on this. Word was spread all over that Bali is opened up, the airport is opened up, tourism is going to begin. B211s are coming in, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. But no, the airport, Norai, is not open for international flights at this point. According to the head of the Bali Ministry of Law and Human Rights, our old friend Pak Jamaruli, he said that airport immigration officers are ready to accept foreign tourist arrivals. The key word is ready to accept, not accepting. He said, in principle, our officers, airport immigration, are ready and previously also ready and still on guard and still on the field. He said this yesterday. Nuarai, our airport, it's not called the Bali airport, it's called Nuarai. Nuarai Airport is one of the airports that's designated as immigration checkpoints for the period of handling of the spread of COVID-19. And there are 8 airports that were listed, and Nuarai is one of them. Right now, you can come in through Jakarta or through Manado. Pak Jamaruli said that the opening of the airport requires the readiness of all immigration officials and officers at airports and ports that will be open later. So they're getting ready. They're in the preparation stages. That's a good sign. That means that they're getting ready, that we could be on the verge of opening for international tourism. And he added, as government ministers always add, and I always talk about too, foreigners who are in Bali and who come to Bali must comply with laws and regulations and health protocols. He said, people that do not follow the procedures will be subject to immigration action. And he warned, this has been done previously, people have been deported. And so, when you come here, you're going to be expected to behave. Now, one of the things that's interesting is before things were closed up in July, when I was doing these reports, there were lots of foreigners behaving badly. There hasn't been that many stories about foreigners behaving badly. Very few. Maybe because there haven't been that many foreigners here. Let's see what happens in the coming weeks. So I said that let's talk about foreigners coming in. And so we've had a few days of the B211s, and how has that been working out? 974 foreigners enter Indonesia through the Jakarta airport in the past 3 days. So since the opening of Bali, once again, for foreign visas, and this is not the tourist visas, these are the B211s, which are sometimes called the business visa. There have been 974 people here. Does that mean that they're all coming in on B211s? No, it doesn't. It just means 974 foreigners have entered in the last 3 days. And there were 874 foreigners who left Indonesia. Okay, so we got a plus 100. And immigration also recorded that 2,961 Indonesian citizens arrived in Indonesia during the same period. And so, are we going to open for international tourists soon? What's the latest word? We get different ones all the time. Indonesia may reopen to tourists from some countries in October, according to Pak Luhut on Friday. Pak Luhut said that we're happy today that the reproduction rate is below 1. It's the lowest during the pandemic and is indicating the pandemic is under control. I hope that's true. Other positive signs included national hospital bed occupancy rate falling below 15%, and the positivity rate is below 5%. And so Pak Luhut said, if the trend continues, we are very confident that Bali could be reopened by October. October is only, well, less than 2 weeks away. Will the government go slow on this? South Korea, Japan, Singapore, and New Zealand are among countries that the government is considering accepting foreign nationals from. Those are countries considered to have low virus numbers, but, well, South Korea and Japan, South Korea had 2,000 a couple days ago, which is really high for them. And Singapore, I don't know. I don't know why these countries are considered to have low numbers. Maybe it's a relative thing. The health minister, Pak Budi, told Reuters earlier in the week that reopening Bali hinges on having 70% of the target population receiving their first COVID shot. And so it's not completely vaxxed. This is going to be first COVID shot, in which case Bali is already over. We're at 73% with first shot. And so are these signs that we're going to open up? Nationally, more than 21% of the targeted 208 million people have been fully vaccinated, and approximately 40% have received their first shot. That's pretty good considering where we were not too long ago. And as I noted the other day, Malaysia has opened up Langkawi, but this is only for domestic visitors. Langkawi is not open for international visitors. And Thailand has Phuket and Samui. And okay, so it's time for the wrap-up. Let's get right into this so I can finish this up and upload it and get to bed tonight. So we see the numbers are getting better and better and better. That's good for us. Vaccinations are coming in. I had a vaccination story that I had to skip, and maybe I'll talk about that on Wednesday. And so people are getting vaccinated. We're up over 50%, well up over 50% at 53%. And the government is preparing the airports, and there's 8 airports that are going to be used as international gateways. And most of you that are watching this only are interested in one airport, that's Ngurah Rai. When is Ngurah Rai going to open? Don't know yet. Ngurah Rai may open for the B211s and all the people that are coming in now, and so that Bali can be one of the quarantine places. That may happen first. that makes sense to me logically, but everything is not always done logically. So the airports are getting ready, are going to be prepared. Everybody's there, you're going to have immigration, and they've gone through all the health protocols, and supposedly all the airports are ready to handle people as they're coming in. Now, a new story that came out that I'm not going to talk about right now in detail, I'll just mention this, is that people are being given the PCR test at the airport when they arrive, not at the hotel when they go to get quarantined. That's a new thing that's just popped up here today. And the results come in 2 hours, according to what I've seen here, and this is on the immigration Twitter account and, well, a lot of other places, but I will talk about that more on Wednesday after I see what happens, because I just saw this happening and first reports coming in from people who have gone through this and said, yes, we are being tested at the airport. Is that going to be a mess? I don't know. It could be a mess. Things are flexible. Things are changing. We're rolling. This is like, you know, the going downhill in a slide on the snow. You know, you pick up speed. It looks like we're picking up speed towards opening. Is that a good thing? Economically, yes. The island needs foreigners. Do I think that's a good thing? No, as I've said before, we need to diversify the economy, but right now this economy is dependent on tourism, and so we need to get tourists back. And I want to get my kids back working again, since several of them are in the tourist business. Never listen to Dad. Tomorrow night, right? What is the president going to say? Or Pak Luhut? Are they going to announce an actual hard date to open up Indonesia? They're going to extend restrictions? I think that's pretty much taken for granted that the PPKM is going to be extended for another week, that they're going to go by week. And even if we open up, I think these restrictions are going to stay in place. Are we out of the woods yet? No. As you've seen from a couple of the segments, or heard from a couple of the segments here, epidemiologists are warning that we've got the new variants that could come in here with people as they're coming in. If they're not already in Indonesia, they could come in with visitors, and so we have to be careful about that. And so what are they saying? What are the key points about what they're saying? Vaccinations, mask wearing, social distancing, avoiding crowds. Is that going to happen? I don't know. Are these regulations going to be enforced when we get a mass amount of tourists in? Would hope so. As I've said throughout the video today, implementation of the rules and regulations. So what's the bottom line? Are we opening up? We don't know. Cautious. Wait and see. If you use an agent and your agent is telling you things are open for international tourism, not yet. If they tell you that the airport is open, it's not, although by the time you see this, it could be. I don't know. It's crazy. It's just crazy. Today is crazy. I was telling my wife, and she said, well, my wife can say these things because she's an Indonesian and I'm not, but she said, they're all nuts. She said, what do you expect? It would be good for the island. It would be good for the people here, Balinese, non-Balinese Indonesians, foreigners that have businesses, people like me who have kids that go to school, grandkids that go to school, kids that have jobs that are dependent on tourism. Yeah, well, it would be such a welcome sigh of relief, but there's always a but. If we get a spike and we have to close, that's not going to look good. Personally, I'm being really conservative, and I'm not in most things, but I would be really conservative about this. I was saying December, but who knows? Could be another week or two. So, well, stick around, and videos are on Wednesday and Sunday. I'm a little punchy from all the time I've spent filming and editing stuff today. And if you're one of these people that watches numbers, thank you for people that have subscribed, given thumbs up, made comments. I had 500. One of my old friends said, "You have 500 subscribers." She said, "I remember when I subscribed to you not that long ago and you had 20 people." And so, yeah, thank you. If you're a subscriber, if you make comments, if you find any of this useful, thank you. I appreciate it. I want to get this done, make a thumbnail, and have a drink, and then go to sleep. So, follow the protocols wherever you are. If you haven't been vaccinated, get vaccinated. If you're going to come to Indonesia, right, you've got to be vaccinated. You got to have 2 shots to get in here, and you got to take the PCR test 3 times now. Once at the airport, although that could be changed by tomorrow, and all those other things I was talking about before. You have to sign that you have health insurance, etc., etc. You can go back and you can look at the special video the other day on Thursday that I uploaded about Bali is opening. Okay, so stay safe, be kind to someone today. I will see you on Wednesday.